My name is Austin Roberts, and I'm doing my research paper and presentation on the Vikings and how their home country affected how their culture developed and what we know them as today. The word Viking derives from the Old Norse word named Vik, which means bay, and the actual term Viking actually means expedition overseas. The Vikings came from the countries of Denmark, Norway, Finland, and Sweden. Um, there's a misconception about Vikings that they were bloodthirsty barbarians that would just kill anything that they saw. Um, they weren't the nicest people, but they're actually a lot more civilized than what people think. Um, they were very skilled traders. Um, they were very skilled adventurers and explorers. And the Vikings were actually the first people to discover America. Um, a lot of people think that Christopher Columbus was, but the Vikings actually discovered Newfoundland, Greenland, and Iceland several hundred years before Columbus did. Um, the reason why the Vikings had to expand um, out of their home country is because of the climate. It's extremely cold in those countries, and because of that, it has a limited amount of agriculture that they were able to produce. Um, the Norwegians generally expanded into Ireland and Scotland, um, and they also discovered Greenland and Iceland. The Vikings from Denmark expanded into England and France, and the Swedish Vikings expanded east into what is now Russia. Um, because of the Vikings need to expand, they had to come up with um, pretty good ships, um, and they did, obviously. The two different kinds of ships that they used were called Viking longships, which were the most common. They also had a ship that was called the Nar, which is spelled Knarr. I'm not sure if that's how you say it or not. Um, these ships were very light, so they didn't really sit down in the water too deep, so they were able to get up through shallow rivers and everything if they needed to get to a remote place. And they were also able to go across the Atlantic Ocean, which is known to be a very rough ocean, and it also has a lot of storms too. So it was very versatile, the ships that they made. Um, because of their skill at being able to make high quality ships, they also became very skilled traders. Uh, People have actually found traces of Vikings from Newfoundland all the way to Byzantium, which is modern day Turkey. Um, they they imported because of their skill at trading and being able to travel large distances. They were able to find their way to the Middle East, and they had access to silk and spices that they imported. Items that they exported were furs, which they had a lot of because they were in less populated. They lived in less populated areas than what other Europeans did. Um, they also had ivory, which came from walrus tusks. They also made a lot of money off of slaves that they took during their raids, which is what they're most known for, is for raiding. The Vikings were actually responsible for founding Dublin, which is in Ireland, and York, which is in England. Um, they turned these towns into huge trading centers and pretty much made those cities what they are today. Um, once Christianity came into the Viking culture, the Catholic Church told the Vikings, they didn't believe in slavery and they didn't believe that a Christian should have to be a slave. So the Vikings had to stop that once they adopted Christianity. Um, Viking warfare was pretty simple. Um, they there wasn't a lot of Vikings in like one area. Um, their ships they could get anywhere that they wanted to, but the ships didn't carry a lot of people. So the Vikings tried to steer clear of big battles and wars. Um, the majority of uh, their fighting came. They just sail wherever they wanted to, and they just go and raid a town or city, and they would just jump back on their boats and take off again. So they tried to stay out of getting caught in bigger battles. Um, and as far as burials go, Christianity actually came into the Viking culture fairly late in the Middle Ages. Um, for the majority of that time, the Vikings were considered pagans, which means that they believed in more than one god. Some of the gods that you might know would be Odin and Thor. Those were the two most popular Viking gods that they worshipped. Um, and during this time, the it affected their burials. Um, ships were a huge part of the burials as well. Um, a lot of you might have seen movies where they put the person that's being you know that had been killed and they put them on a ship and they sail them out into the water and then light an arrow and they shoot it onto the boat and you see it burn and sinks to the bottom of the ocean. That was one way that they did it. Another way was they put the dead person in the boat and they made a mound out of it and they built it into the earth. And the Vikings actually had beliefs kind of like the Greeks. The Greeks had two gold pieces placed on each of their eyes, and that was supposed to pay their way into heaven or the afterlife or whatever they thought it was. And the Vikings were kind of the same way. They buried their personal belongings, like their weapons, gold. Uh, they even have traces of horses and even slaves being buried with these people. Um, so I thought that was kind of interesting. And that is about it. I thought it was a pretty interesting topic to do my research paper on, and I think that the ships were definitely a huge part of Viking culture. If it wasn't for the cold weather and lack of agriculture, I don't think that we would know um, the Vikings as they are today. And that's it, and thank you.